What is happening, people? Here's your opposition preview for Aston Villa against Tottenham. It's a big game in different ends of the table. I mean, personally, I thought as a Spurs fan before a ball was kicked that we'd be competing with Aston Villa. Wasn't sure what it would be for, but I thought we'd be in and around them. Well, goodness me, was I wrong? And it's been a crazy, crazy season. And I'm delighted to be joined by Neil from the Love of Paul McGrath Villa podcast. Neil, thank you very much for joining me. I believe our third discussion. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Harry. I'm doing great. Great to be here.
It's great to have you. Let me tell you that. Thank you very, very much. And let's waste no time and get straight into it. So I want to talk about your guys' season, Aston Villa, so far. At the time of talking to you, you sit in 5th position in the Premier League with 58 points, level on points that is, but as well with Liverpool in 4th place. It looks almost certain that you'll get top 5, which will be Champions League football, and doing very well in Europe. And this is being recorded, which is really important to say this. It's being recorded just before you play Nottingham Forest in that Europa League semi-final. So we don't know the outcome of that, being recorded a couple of days before. What's been your thinking so far this season? Have you been happy?
We've been on the strangest season. Like, just the strangest season so far Aston Villa have had. It's a strange for good reasons, should I say, because there's a phrase here in Ireland that eaten bread is soon forgotten, and what that means is that whether good things have happened or bad things have happened, you got to move past them and they're forgotten and you move on from them. And when you think back of this whole season, we've had two very, very clear instances of that. We've had the first 5 games of the season whereby we were rubbish and we could do nothing right, and we looked ponderous, slow. We looked like every player looked like they were 65 years of age in the field, and we were like, "Oh my God, has the bloom gone off the rose?" Then we went on a 12-game winning streak, and we were brilliant. And now we're kind of at the stage of the season since we played you guys in the cup. We're at about a kind of a stage in the season where we're spluttering slightly since Boubacar Kamara got injured in that game after the challenge from João Palhinha, and then we had McGinn get injured against Everton, and then Tielemans get injured against Newcastle. So 3 weeks in a row, 3 games in a row, we lost our whole midfield. And I know I'm preaching to the converted here about losing multiple players in similar positions, because you guys have had an absolute murderer's row of injuries this year. But we started to splutter big style there, and we had a 7-game period whereby we went from being pretty much unbeatable genuinely over a 12-game period to a 7-game period of going, we don't know what type of team is going to turn up here. We don't know how flaky we're going to be. We've gotten the train back on the tracks in recent weeks, albeit that a win against Fulham would have guaranteed Champions League football ahead of the Europa League tie that's going to be kicking off later this week. But that hasn't happened. But we still are in the driving seat with regards to Europe. Chelsea have faltered. You have Brighton are coming on the rails, and it looks like now Brentford are out of the race after their multiple draws recently. So Villa we've had the really, really lows at the start of the season, the massive highs. We're in a bit of a doldrums at the moment, but a win at the weekend qualifies us for the Champions League, and a win over 2 legs against Nottingham Forest qualifies us for a European final. So this is a massive, massive, massive 10 days in Aston Villa's season, and we can only be happy and be excited, I suppose, as we look forward to it.
Absolutely. And, for all those small negatives you actually mentioned within that, of course, as well as the positives, you could technically still finish 3rd in the Premier League. They're not that far away at all. We're talking 3 points off Man United in 3rd. It's absolutely within touching distance. And like I said earlier, level on points with Liverpool. And the only thing is your goal difference is quite a bit less than particularly United's, but also Liverpool, but still in a really good position. So you could win the Europa League and get 3rd. I mean, you would have taken that, wouldn't you, at the start of the season?
Absolutely, 100%. 100%. I take winning the Europa League and finishing 5th. I wouldn't taking the Europa League. At the start of the season, after the first 5 games, I would have taken winning the Europa League and finishing 17th, like you guys did last year. But now we're chasing more loftier goals. This weekend is huge. Brighton are I can't remember who Brighton play off the top of my head. I think Brighton have Newcastle this weekend, if I'm not mistaken. If Brighton lose that game and Villa draw against Spurs, we're qualified for the Champions League regardless, because Brighton Brighton could still catch us in goal difference, but it would mean that we would have to lose out. And considering we play Burnley next week, I'm not 100% sure that would be the case. But So that might take a bit of the pressure off for the second leg of the Europa League. So I think Villa will kick themselves for not getting at least a draw against Fulham last weekend. It was probably the worst football match that's been played in the Premier League this season, hands down. It has to be. There cannot have been a worse quality game of football that happened in the Premier League than what happened last weekend, Villa and Fulham. The chances that were missed, the dourness in midfield, just the boringness of the game. And the goal that Villa conceded was sloppy too. But Villa will need to have their heads on a swivel, I think, in this game, especially coming off the Europa League on Thursday night.
Absolutely that, Neil. Thank you very, very much. And on to my club then, Tottenham, and the season today. Of course, it's been disastrous. Let's be honest about it. But again, the time of speaking to you, inside the relegation zone in 18th, 2 points adrift with 34, nearest club being West Ham. And so what have you made of Tottenham's season so far? Have you been extremely disappointed? And could you ever see the situation like before a ball was kicked or at various points of the season? Because there were points that we struggled under Frank, but did you really see Tottenham falling this far? I mean, I know
No.
some would say, look, 17th in the Premier League last year, but there is a real genuine fear. I would say the expectation even is that we do go down this year.
It's an absolute, like, I'm going to use some strong words, but I just want everybody to believe that to understand I don't dislike Tottenham. I dislike the situation that they're in for Tottenham fans. It's an absolute shambles where you guys are. There is no metric within football at all other than just really poor management from the top that has you guys where you guys are. One of the biggest things that I would say is that, what I didn't like about this year was even people in the boardroom, if I'm not mistaken, were blaming Daniel Levy. Oh, well, we're in this position because of Daniel Levy. And that to me is a cop-out, huge cop-out. And that shows lack of leadership from the top down. And then you've got situations where people were, last year, Ange was saying, I was given the remit to go and win a trophy. We were told this club hasn't won a trophy in ages. And that interview he gave when he was Nottingham Forest manager. Now, I don't think Ange was the answer, but he said they broke their promise to me. They asked me to win a trophy. I basically fielded kids for the last 6 or 7 games because I knew that we wouldn't go down. And I put all my eggs in that basket like I was told to do. And then they still got rid of me. And he said, so there's something rotten in that boardroom. And then this year, then Thomas Frank is given the reins and they pump him up at the start. And then the second, things start to go south, they get rid of him. And then an absolutely inexplicable, how in the name of God Igor Tudor was hired. Like how in the name of all that's anyway coherent in football, that man was hired to take over for that period of games, and then he treated it like it was dirt in his shoe. So my that's where the issue is here. The issue is the blame game that comes from the top down, and I think we're seeing this more and more with football clubs as they start to have multiple levels of middle management or upper management, if you want to call it, and nobody can seem to agree, and everybody seems to be trying to outmuscle the next person to gain full control. And Spurs, I think, have fallen victim of that. And there is a power struggle. Daniel Levy went, and there's a power struggle now to be the next Daniel Levy. I'm not saying Levy was perfect, no way, shape or form. But sometimes having that figurehead, that person that's been at the club that knows how, that knows which doors are creaky, knows where there's where the creaky floorboards are, should I say? That's something that I think is very beneficial to have.
100% Neil, thank you very much. And before we move on, I'd just like to add, if I had to predict what's going to happen, unfortunately at this point, I do think we'll go down. And if we do, I think what will happen is it'll be kind of a blame game and deflection from upstairs. I think they go, oh, we inherited a tough situation, but in particular. But I think what they will say is it's down to injuries. They go, it's down to injuries and kind of everything else will be blamed other than taking accountability. They won't look at it and go, we didn't do enough in the summer, and particularly we didn't do enough in January, where we had our sporting director in Johan Lange saying the most important thing was not to panic buy. And I'd see that clip a lot going around this week, or at least we didn't panic buy. And he'd say exactly the same thing if he was asked now. And I believe they took a gamble, huge risk with the future of the football club, which at the moment is going to be handed straight back at them. And I think they're going to completely deflect it and go, the word they would use would be unprecedented. They would go, this injury crisis is unprecedented. It's never happened before, never been seen before. They will say that West Ham had 0 injuries. We have 11, maybe 12 if Mwani's out. So can you understand fans like mine's concern? While I'm more worried about staying in the league, if we do go down, I just think it's going to be total deflection and no responsibility taken.
Exactly, you know. So I'm glad that I don't follow an awful lot of Spurs fan sites. Like I've got a cousin that follows Spurs. He's big in the Spurs supporters group here in Ireland. But you know, I'm glad that I got the feeling right, I suppose, within the club there from my outside looking in hat on. Like I remember when you guys gazumped us for Conor Gallagher, I was kind of I was distraught. I was like, oh, I would have been perfect for Villa, you know, been brilliant. And like Spurs fans are looking at him going, what the hell? You know, what the hell is this all about? You know, so it's one of those things whereby I think that, you know, I think that the blame game needs to stop. Somebody needs to be growing up there. It's a £1 billion industry that Spurs have going on there with their stadium and everything like that. And to be in the Championship is nothing short of an absolute abject failure. It's not unprecedented. There's nothing that I don't care. Tottenham Hotspur are an entity that are too big to go down. Just like I thought Villa were in 2016, but that's 10 years ago. Now the way Premier League football has gone, the amount of money Spurs have amassed through winning European competitions, being in competitions, having one of the best stadiums that I've had the pleasure of being in before, there is no unprecedented that you could throw at me as a fan for me to believe that Spurs, we went down because it was unprecedented. Not having it. Not having it in any way, shape or form. It is mismanagement.
Totally agree with you. And just a reminder, I think it's the highest in Europe that stadium creates revenue-wise on match day and match the course with the highest season ticket prices.
If Villa had half the revenue, if our stadium was able to create half the revenue that stadium could create, we wouldn't be in the doldrums where we are. You know, and we're two sides of the coin, I think. You guys are flush with cash. Like yes, you want to pay down your stadium debt. And I know the club don't want to be anchored with that for 20, 30 years or whatever. And they're doing kind of the same thing that Arsenal did. Or they were trying to, but staying in the Premier League is worth a hell of a lot more than 1 year in the Championship. And I know that you guys will only be in the Championship for a year, but it's a blot in your copybook. It's a stain on the crest, you know. And like Villa fans will still say this, that when we got relegated, we nearly went out of business. And other fans see that as a stain on our crest. The fact that we got relegated as a big team, we were part of the traditional Big Six before Man City. And then, you know, now we're the plucky losers. We're plucky underdogs coming up through the leagues again. And that's not Aston Villa's way. And, you know, Spurs will get out of the Championship. There's too much of a disparity between the earning power and everything like that. You guys are coming up first go. It took us 3 years to come up. And like that's why we're cherishing everything we're going through at the moment. And to win a trophy from it would be amazing. But like Spurs are on the back of winning the trophy. We're hoping to win against Forest and then on into the final is, you know, it would be incredible for Spurs to go down. It's never thought I'd be actually saying, to be honest with you.
Absolutely. A year ago, not even that, a triumph in the Europa League, winning that. I was there at the trophy parade, wasn't there in Bilbao, but the trophy parade outside the stadium, and record numbers gathering and just jubilation. And then saying season 3 to be better than season 2. And even his biggest critics, I think, were happy for him in that moment, or were like, okay, he'd justified. Very few were saying that it'd be right to sack him. And they didn't even give it that long that we could enjoy it so much, because all of a sudden that uncertainty, whatever you think about the manager, the club left it so long without a manager, and that uncertainty hanged over us on already that good feeling was killed. So they went that totally wrong about that, because they let him know I was on holiday. And I think that was completely wrong. They left him in doubt for the half a holiday, and then towards the end let him know he's been gone. So from an even like moral and human perspective, I think they just completely horribly handled that, if I may say so. But Neil, thank you very much.
Absolutely. I think you'll find a football and any football fan that speaks objectively about Spurs, I think you'll find one that won't disagree. you won't find anybody who disagree with you in that aspect, because I was incredulous. Like, I was incredulous about how they got rid of Ange, incredulous about how they very early in Thomas Frank's tenure they started to, like, there was leaks coming out that they aren't too happy with him, and then the Igor Tudor stuff. Like, whoever hired Igor Tudor should literally be, they should be pilloried and put in the stocks outside Tottenham, outside the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, because just a rubbish appointment. Like, really, really was. And everyone could see it. That's the thing. Everyone could see it. It was short-termist. It was cheap. It wasn't unprecedented to hire Igor Tudor. That's all I'd say. So well, it was unprecedented to hire him, but Igor Tudor had nothing to do with the injuries. So, hire a better manager than him, and for that 4 to 6 game period, you might have picked up more points.
I totally agree with you, Neil. Thank you. If we shift into the game then this Sunday, and of course the time moved as well more recently. A couple of questions for you on this game. I want to get your general thoughts ahead of it, but two things that I'm interested for you that influence it. One, in us in Spurs, after getting our first win of 2026 in the Premier League last weekend, so last time out against Wolves, had to wait 118 days for it. How do you think that affects it? And also your result in Europe. There's a couple of factors there. One, that we know the outcome of it, and of course you don't know what the outcome is in Europe. So does that influence your thinking positively or negatively ahead of the game?
I think that Unai Emery is going to be really. I think those players got. I think they got both barrels from Unai Emery after that Fulham game. Now, Emery came out in public and everything. And I think he probably had to with the Europa League game coming up. Came out in public and said, I was happy with the performance and the process. Now, Villa won the ball. Like, I think they had 70% possession or something like that, or 61 or 69% possession. I can't remember. They kind of owned the ball, but they were so flaccid with the ball. It was incredible. I would imagine inside in that dressing room, he was giving out stink. So I think that Villa will. I don't think he'll accept any less than two good performances, one against Forest on Thursday and one against Spurs. I think he wants to get this wrapped up. I know he's got Burnley, and look, I don't want to speak ill of Burnley either, but we kind of just really need a point. I think if we got a point at the weekend, and then I'm okay with tripping over the line. Like, I'm very okay with just tripping over the line here to get into 5th place. But it's hard to know how it's going to go because it's at home in Villa Park. I think the Villa Park fans will have a lot to say on Sunday, from the point of view of they will be rightly up for this, regardless of the result in the City Ground. They will be rightly up for this because they know a win guarantees it. They know the win guarantees it, and they know how big this stretch from Thursday to Thursday is over this coming week. This next 10 days is just huge. It could be like a cusp of the wave stuff. Look forward to the Champions League, potentially looking forward to a European Cup final, and get the passports out for Istanbul. There's an awful lot riding on this, and so I think the fact that this is in Villa Park at the weekend, I think that is a big determining factor here. I think it really, really is, because we've played some better football at home, albeit it's not been perfect since the turn of the year, but we've played better football at home, and hopefully we can rekindle something there.
Thank you very much. And can I get lastly then, Neil, your score prediction for this one?
I'm going to go 2-1 Aston Villa, because Villa win by 1 goal, and we always win 2-1. So that's it's. I think there was something, if you were to back every game that Villa played this year for them to win 2-1, I think if at this stage you'd be up like something €1,000. And if you were to back Villa, not because I know you guys haven't got a penalty this year yet, so I'm going to predict you guys are going to get a penalty and we're going to get a penalty, and it's going to even out. But if you were to back every single game Villa not to get a penalty and put a $5 on day one, you'd have something like $4,500 already. I did maths on it recently. Bonkers stuff.
Wow.
But, so I think 2-1 to Villa. Yeah.
Lovely, Neil. Thank you. And away from the game then to end of season predictions, and that it gets easier in a way because we've got less games to the end of the year, but also it gets harder because we all know, like, teams, especially down the bottom, we've seen it recently, haven't we? They just go completely up don't they? They completely go up for these big games. They just get like, look at Forest, they absolutely smash Sunderland. When it matters, the teams on the bottom, they really turn up, which makes it harder. So starting with my club, Tottenham, where do you think they'll finish in the league? And you can be totally honest about this. Championship or Premier League next season?
I'll be honest. I think if Tottenham don't win this weekend, I've got a funny feeling West Ham are going to get a result against Brentford. Maybe a draw, maybe a win. I think this Brentford team are well out of steam. They've drawn their last 6 or something like that. I think they're on the biggest drawing run. They're on the beach. It's a hard one. I think Spurs might just stay up. But I think it could be a last day of the season stuff. Because I think that, I think De Zerbi is a good manager, and I think, I just think it's too. I think the club it's too big to go down. Like, I really do. If they go down, like even last day of the season, if Spurs go down, my jaw will be on the floor. It genuinely will. So hard to know. It really is so hard to know. West Ham bringing in Paco Jimenez, and all of a sudden they look like prime AC Milan from the early 90s, in defence. Like the league is weird. The league is weird, but I think Spurs might just stay up.
I hope you're right. I'm not confident at this moment in time, but I am a little bit more than I was after that Wolves win. I know they're relegated. I know they're the worst team in the league factually, being bottom, but what could the win do for confidence? Could it change this?
I think it's the Leeds game. I think the Leeds game will have a big say in it. That's what I'm saying. Like, if you guys get a point against us, then or even a win, and then you've got the Leeds game. It's just like that. That's why I was so hesitant. I'm not convinced you're going to. Well, Everton might be a nothing game at the end of the season. You might be able to, like, that's a whole other story if Everton aren't in contention for European places. But yeah, it's so hard to look past the next 2 games though for you guys.
Yeah, it's huge, and even Chelsea know that struggling a little bit, but still at Stamford Bridge, we just don't get a result. And I just think all these games are really, I find it hard to commit to one that will say we're going to win, and that's the problem, because I think we need to win 2 at least, and I just can't. And I'm not going to say I can't see us winning one, but I can't sit here, Neil, and say to you we're definitely winning this. I can't. I just don't have that in me.
And this is where it is, because Leeds have to play both you guys and West Ham. And sorry, that my mind was running faster than my mouth was there. And West Ham play Leeds the last day of the season. You guys play Leeds after us. Now West Ham have, I think, Newcastle and Arsenal. I think after Brentford. Yeah. So like it's an interesting run in.
It's gonna be tight.
That's why I think when I said you guys might just stop. I think there could be a situation whereby West Ham draw with Leeds last day of the season. You guys beat Everton, and then all of a sudden, Spurs stay up. No, it's
I hope you're right.
Interesting.
I hope you're right. I feel like we made too many mistakes to stay up. It just feels that everything goes against you. You make poor errors. It just feels right to go down. But we'll see what happens. But Neil, end with Aston Villa then. Predictions for both the league and the Europa League.
I think we finish 4th in the league, and I have to predict we're going to win properly. I have to do it. The fan in me. There's no time for pragmatism when you get to semi-finals. You don't want to be objective and pragmatic. You want to just say we're going to win in a lot. We're going to doubly qualify for the Champions League this year. If we're in a quarterfinal or the last 16, I'd be more pragmatic. But no, we've got Nottingham Forest, the team we know, a team that we respect, and a team that there's going to be great banter with, and it's we've actually got great. A great rapport with Nottingham Forest, East and West Midlands, and the same actually with Bologna and the last tie. Like the fans were just friends for a finish. We played them so many times. There's been bonds made and everything, and it wasn't one of your typical European ties whereby you're baying for blood at the other groups of fans, and there's a bit of aggro. There's none of that. There won't be any of that in the City Ground. There won't be any of that in Villa Park, and it'll just be whichever is the best football team in the day wins, and I have to go with Villa are going to win. Villa are going to play Frankfurt in the final in Istanbul, and Villa are going to win.
Oh, love it. Thank you. I love the positivity. I think that'd be an excellent season for you. And like you said, massive 10 games, 10 days, sorry, you've got 3 games across that, determines if you get to the final, not of the Europa League and a League Two game there as well. It's just absolutely huge and really sets you up for what you know is going to happen in these last couple of games that follow. But Neil, thank you very much once again for talking to me. Please tell people where they can find you personally and also the podcast on the socials.
Yeah, I only kind of act under the podcast name. I'm not worth following on a personal level, to be honest with you. Unless you want niche Irish punk rock music. That's the only. And to be honest with you, I've just started posting that in the podcast links anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But yeah, you can find me just looking at any of your podcast feeds for Paul McGrath. They were For the Love of Paul McGrath. You'll see us there. The big number 5 is our logo, and on YouTube as well. We're For the Love of Paul McGrath too. So yeah, and during the summer we tend to, we stay going during the summer, but we scout players that not just players that are linked with Villa, but players that I like. I've got a kind of a small background and I've got an education in football scouting, so I do bits and pieces of that on and give my view on players, whether they're linked with Villa or not, through the course of the whole summer. So if you're interested in finding out a small bit more about players that may or may not be linked to Spurs, or you're just interested in finding out about players in general, you'll probably stumble across something on our website or on our YouTube channel that would maybe of interest to you.
Neil, fantastic stuff. Thank you. Please make sure to follow Neil across all socials. I wish you personally, the podcast, all the best, and of course as well Aston Villa for the remaining few games. Hopefully you do well, and I'd much rather you finish above all these clubs in and around you. United, Liverpool. I do prefer Aston Villa for sure. I'm not just saying that because you're here. I do promise. But follow Neil on his podcast, For the Love of Paul McGrath Villa podcast. Thank you very much. And also, if you're listening to this podcast via YouTube, please subscribe. If you're listening by audio platform, podcast platform, drop us a follow and a 5-star review for like this opposition previews, as well as the 2 podcast episodes a week. And Neil said that it continues, different content that continues in the summer, exactly the same here at Scarfey Spurs, but we'll keep going in the summer. With Spurs, there's always something to talk about, whether in the Premier League or Championship. There's going to be a lot. I think it's a massive turnover and changeover I had to predict coming in the summer, so I'll be there to cover it all. Neil, thank you very much. And to end, sorry about this bit though, come on you Spurs.